The storm that changed everything arrived on a moonless night with a fury reserved for forgotten places. Caleb Hart jolted awake to the sound of splintering wood, a centuries-old groan of a falling giant. Behind the barn, 3 ancient oaks had stood for as long as any living memory could recall. Now one lay shattered, its roots clawing at the sky like the fingers of a buried, desperate secret. He approached the crater where the great trunk had torn free from the rain-soaked, unwilling earth. A flat slab of limestone emerged from the mud, too deliberate in its shape to be nature's accident. He wiped away the clinging soil and revealed a single word carved deep: forgiven. Beneath that stone, he found a rusted iron box sealed with wax that crumbled at his touch. Inside lay a tarnished silver locket engraved with a wild rose and a folded piece of old leather. The leather was a map, drawn in faded ink, leading to a canyon he'd never heard named. Caleb felt the weight of 100 silent years pressing against his chest as dawn finally broke. He had purchased this ranch 3 years ago, seeking solitude to bury his own war-scarred grief. Now the land was yielding a mystery, and he was not the kind of man to walk away. By midday, a rider appeared on the horizon, a woman whose posture was a blade against the wind. She dismounted with a fluid, determined grace, her dark eyes scanning the toppled oak with something like recognition. Her name was Evangeline, and she carried a worn journal that matched the locket's rose engraving perfectly. She claimed the grave belonged to her great-grandfather, a man falsely branded an exile and a thief. The 3 oaks, she explained, were planted by his 3 daughters as an eternal vigil of loyalty. Caleb showed her the map, and her trembling fingers traced the ink as if touching a living pulse. The town's old-timers had always whispered about a disgraced homesteader who stole from the founding families. Evangeline's family had been scattered to the winds, their name erased from every record except this hidden box. Together, they decoded the map, finding the canyon entrance hidden behind a waterfall a day's ride distant. The journey through scrub oak and red rock was a crucible of shared water and whispered, vulnerable histories. He told her about the war, the men he couldn't save, and the ghosts that still walked with him. She spoke of a lineage of fierce women, each generation passing down the locket and the unfulfilled promise. They reached the hidden canyon at sunset, a narrow slit in the earth glowing amber and violet. Behind the waterfall, a dry cave held a small wooden chest sealed with the same wax rose emblem. The chest contained a surveyor's deed, legally signed and notarized for the entire valley the town now occupied. Also inside was a confession letter from the town's founder, admitting to framing Evangeline's ancestor for land theft. The truth had been buried for a century, guarded by oak roots and a single carved word: forgiven. Evangeline wept, not with sorrow, but with the vindication of 100 years of whispered shame. Caleb held her, and in that silent cave, 2 lonely souls forged an unbreakable, unexpected bond. They returned to town with the evidence, and the morning sun cast their long shadows on the dusty street. The mayor scoffed until he saw the founder's signature, and his face crumpled into a map of old guilt. A town meeting was called, and Evangeline read the confession aloud, her voice steady as a river stone. The descendants of the founding family sat in stunned silence, the myths of their superiority crumbling to dust. The deed legally restored a vast portion of the land to Evangeline, but she sought no revenge. She asked only for the name on the grave to be carved into the town's official history, and she requested that the 2 remaining oaks be protected forever as living monuments to her family's endurance. Caleb stood beside her throughout, his quiet strength a bulwark against the whispers of lingering, bitter skeptics. With the legalities settled, they returned to the ranch, to the grave now bathed in gentle, forgiving light. Caleb carved a new headstone from the wood of the fallen oak, etching the name Elias Thorne upon it. He planted it beside the original limestone slab, and Evangeline placed the locket atop the fresh earth. She told her great-grandfather's spirit that his exile had finally ended, and his daughters could rest now. That evening, sitting beneath the two standing oaks, Caleb reached for her hand with a trembling, certain hope. He told her that he had been a nameless grave too, waiting for someone to unearth his hidden heart. She kissed him as the stars emerged, a single act that planted a new, vibrant root in both their souls. Their love grew not like a wildfire, but like the oaks themselves, slow, deep, and utterly indestructible. They married in the shadow of the oaks, with the entire town as witnesses to their union. The preacher spoke of roots that hold fast through storms, and of love that redeems the exiled. Evangeline's mother, an elderly woman with the same fierce eyes, attended and wept tears of joyous closure. Caleb and Evangeline built their life on the ranch, turning the old barn into a school for history. They taught the valley's children that a person's legacy is never defined by the loudest, cruelest voices. The hidden canyon became a sanctuary, a place where they would ride to remember the power of truth. Evangeline gave birth to a daughter, and they named her Oakley, a living tribute to the ancient guardians. The two remaining oaks flourished, their leaves whispering ancient secrets to the next generation of listening ears. Caleb found that his war ghosts had been replaced by the gentle laughter of his wife and child. The silver locket was eventually moved to a small museum in town, displayed with the confession letter. The grave behind the barn became a pilgrimage site for those seeking proof that justice can wait but never die. Evangeline's fierce protection of her heritage softened into a nurturing embrace of the community that once shunned it. She became the town's first female mayor, elected by a landslide of repentant and grateful hearts. Caleb remained her quiet anchor, the man who had dug up a mystery and found his whole world. They would often sit on the porch, watching the sunset gild the oaks, and speak of the storm. Without that violent wind, the grave would still be hidden, and their love would be an unrealized dream. Evangeline would trace the rose on the locket and marvel at how forgiveness outlasted a century of lies. Caleb would reply that the oaks had been waiting for someone willing to listen to their silent, rooted testimony. Their daughter grew up knowing the story by heart, a bedtime tale of courage, maps, and hidden treasure. She learned that the greatest treasure wasn't the deed, but the love that bloomed from seeking the truth. The legacy of Elias Thorne was no longer one of shame, but of a family's unwavering, silent dignity. The town erected a statue of 3 daughters planting oaks, a permanent apology carved in bronze. Evangeline and Caleb lived long, their hair turning to silver, their love remaining as green as spring. When they finally passed, they were buried side by side near the original grave, under the oak's protection. Their headstone reads, "Here lie two who unearthed the truth and planted a forest of love." The 3 oaks now number 5, new saplings planted by their daughter and grandchildren. The grave is no longer nameless, and the story is no longer hidden in the mud. It is a living testament that the most forgotten corners can hold the keys to ultimate redemption, and that the lonely, the exiled, and the broken are often just waiting for someone to find them. So look at the forgotten places in your own life with new eyes and an open heart. You might just uncover a map leading to a love more valuable than all the gold in the West. Now, please subscribe to Western Tales Official and ring that bell so you never miss a buried story. Tell me in the comments, what hidden legacy do you think is waiting to be unearthed in your own world? Like this video if you believe that even the most silent grave has a voice worth finally hearing. Share it with someone who needs to know that their own roots are deeper than they ever imagined. The oaks still stand, the grave still speaks, and love still grows where the storm once tore everything apart.